So where should I start? I was out for over a week in another city and I didn't even get to go around it just because I went there for a medical checkup and all I got to see were some hairy men on the beach. I was depressed, but more so because I haven't watched a single anime episode in the past 4 weeks. What am I even doing? Well, I was reading Land of the Lustrous manga and you probably hoped that it might cheer me up, but you are wrong. And if you want to know why, keep watching this video till the end. For the past month or so, I have been reading many manga, and although I hoped to make a video on the ones that were to my liking like Kaguya-sama, Kingdom or March Comes Like a Lion, but as it happens I needed to make a video ASAP and there was Houseki no Kuni or Land of the Lustrous with 95 chapters, and as a man who doesn't care about his personal pleasure, I took upon myself to get caught up to it. Since it has been on hiatus for over a year now, but as it turns out it wasn't a good decision. It's not that I would call Land of the Lustrous manga mid, but it wasn't a series that would hook you up to it for long, or at least it wasn't the case for me. There were several things that really left an impression on me and would have me talking about it for years, but even then, I felt the things weren't held together as it was promised to the reader. This would take some time, so bear with me, and even if you are a fan of Houseki no Kuni, which many are apparently, be sure to comment the positives or negatives of this manga, apart from the criticisms or praise that I made, and also if you agree with it or not. And if you are someone who is thinking to read the manga, well, pay heed to my words. Let's start by discussing the plot. So apparently there are gems designed as little girls, but more often they are referred by either male pronouns or their gender isn't asserted. And the purpose of these gems, who embodies human values and emotions, not to an advanced extent, is to defend themselves against the threat of extraterrestrial beings called the Lunarians. At the center of them is the teacher who guides them and for the most part acts as a parental figure to them. I know it has a very unique concept, and as someone who loves to explore many forms of media, I really feel very fortunate to read it. So the personality of the gems mostly is corresponding to their structure and hardness of the gems which they are made of. And that's all, unless you want to get spoiled. If I have to say, I don't know how much you will agree with me, but it was like Attack on Titan in many ways, and I can't discuss in here, but those of you who already read it, well, you can contemplate about it. For me, what makes Land of the Lustrous manga stand out was its concept. A very fascinating indeed. And after reading the manga's interview, it did really impress me regarding how she was able to pitch this idea for a manga. But among all of this, the feeling of dissatisfaction was still lingering within me. Unlike many people that I know who read the manga first, I, on the other hand, watched the anime, and comparing to the manga, it has its pros and cons. The anime that came out in 2017 was just a prequel, and unlike Berserk or Vinland Saga, it was, I got to say it was boring. And the surprising factor is that the interesting part was just a few chapters away from the one up to which was adapted into the anime. But on the positive side, the anime looks gorgeous, really gorgeous, and it was one of the very few examples where the CGI was done right, almost to near perfection. And since the characters in here are basically gems, the fluorescence was very vibrant compared to the manga, which literally gave me a hard time when I started reading it. The contrast and the mixture of the black and white color tones was very lackluster, and it was very hard to figure out what was going on. But I'll be giving my criticisms a break for now, since I would get into it much deeper later. Our protagonist, Phospholite or Phos, is someone through whose perspective you can view the world, and don't get offended when I refer these gems as an object or by male pronouns, just to be clear. Phos was a cheerful one, and it was his journey upon which the story revolves. We as the reader would jump into the story totally clueless, and along with Phos we'd get to know the world and why certain things are like that, and of course there's spoiler, so I won't say more. Also, I can't say much about the antagonist except, there's the Lunarians whose unbridled attacks has every gem in their toes, and they're basically, what should I say? Pawns maybe? Or machines? I don't know. As for the side characters, yeah, they have their own distinguished personalities, and you would probably lose count of them unless they are more prominent, but yeah, at times they impact the story more than you can imagine. Now, coming to the art, which makes or breaks any manga for me. Since I watched the anime first and it looked pretty awesome, I was led to believe it was the same with the manga as well. But little did I know that I would be having seizures while reading it. Well, it had been all throughout the manga and I tried hard to get habituated with it. But damn, I wasted over an hour just trying to read the first 5 chapters. But even after having nearly similar looking characters and a very odd color tone of grey to embellish the gems, but frankly, it was horrifying. And don't get me wrong here, although the characters might be hard to recognize, but the oddities or the Lunarians and the building designs were very good. Even in the manga, with occasional double spreads that looked very mesmerizing. And that's all about the art. Well, so now you may ask, so what was the thing that didn't sit well with me? Why do I think that Land of the Lustrous isn't as great as it is thought to be? Land of the Lustrous, of course, had an awesome plot, and the way the story took it slow for the first 40 or so chapters was done correctly in my opinion. But then it all became so obtrusive. There wasn't the feeling of serenity anymore. And in a span of few chapters, a whole lot of things took place. The development did feel left out and we only got to see the final results at each given moment. Also, you want to mention that in the world of Land of the Lustrous, the duration of a certain phase doesn't last decades but centuries. So even though the mangaka tried to inculcate the trait in order to make the reader feel it, but it did feel very contrived and inchoate. This was also sudden and I don't see that sort of writing in a positive light. I feel an author or a mangaka needs to make a character grow in front of the reader and not in their respective world. I'm not always up for the sudden change. I want to feel and see the development. But yeah, compared to Dorohedoro, this was indeed much better. At least it had narrative depth in the later parts that I expect from a fairly good manga. Anyways, so that leads to the end of the video. Now, before I go, I just want to say I don't want you to conceive that these are my dogmatic views. Of course, I'm open to any counter or arguments. Maybe I won't reply, but I would certainly read all your comments. So yeah, of course, you should read Land of the Lustrous and you can even watch the anime. It was good. And that's all for this video. But yeah, more great manga content to come in my channel, so stay tuned. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like. I know I'm getting a lot of dislikes, but who cares about that? And also ring the bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video on my channel. And so, zip!